All right, here's another circle debate for you folks.
Our next question, are real world math problems overrated? Zach, you're first.
Okay, Mike, hot take here. My claim is that real world math problems are overrated. Here's why. So many textbooks, including the one that I'm an author on, we provide practice problems and then we've got these real world problems at the end that have some context in there. I think those are completely overrated. I don't think they add anything or much value at all to students to help them do that. Now, if we redefine what we mean by real world math problems, I might say that they're not overrated. But the real world math problems we see in textbooks, on websites, those are overrated because they just tend to add some arbitrary context to them that doesn't help push the math forward for kids. So my warrant is that when we look at those problems, they don't add anything to kids, they don't help them get better, it doesn't make more sense to the math for them, or doesn't help them make sense of the math anymore. Real world math problems, overrated.
All right.
All right, Mike, it is your turn to summarize and respond.
All right, Zach, I heard you say that real world problems are overrated, but you put a qualifier that you're talking about the textbook, like word problem at the end.
Yep.
And your warrant was that it's not really helping kids to make strong connections to the context. It's just like another delivery mechanism for them to do some computation, and therefore they're overrated. Okay. So my claim is, I also have to put that same qualifier on, is that the textbook ones I do also feel like are overrated because they get some emphasis. And my warrant is that it's often it's presented in ways in which kids don't consider the context itself. They're just looking for keywords or pulling the numbers out, and it's not giving them a chance to really do what we consider modeling with mathematics, which is what contextualized problems really lend themselves to. So I think the textbook version can be overrated. What's underrated, though, my claim is that the real contextualized problems where kids have to consider the ambiguity, they have to make approximations, they have to refine their model based on getting more data from the context. I think that's underutilized and underrated, and we need to see more of it in classrooms.
Zach, now is your chance to summarize and respond.
All right, Mike, you're saying real world problems are underrated with the qualifier that real world in your mind are these problems that provide ambiguity and reasons for approximation, the math that actually happens in the world, not these other ones. So I would agree with you on that. And I would even add, we just had a fun play date the other day where we did a problem about zombies. I'd call that a real world math problem, right? Even though it's not real world in the sense that zombies don't exist, at least that we know of at this point, right? But where I would stay with is, I think so many teachers don't have the opportunity to spend all the time to make those problems like we do. And so they're stuck with the real world problems at the end of their lesson in their math book. And those are overrated in my mind because they just don't provide much more support for young people to make sense of the math that they're working with. They're, like you said, they're arbitrary in the sense that, like, I'm just going to do the operation I've been doing the whole lesson with this problem at the end. If I've been adding numbers, I'm going to add the numbers in the problem there. So they aren't actually helping make the math any better or make the kid push their thinking anymore.
All right, and Mike, now is your chance to summarize and respond one more time.
All right, so I heard you reinforce your claim that they are still overrated because they aren't really supporting students to build connections with the context, they're really just more of a vehicle to do math, and that contexts like the zombie outbreak provide a way, even though it's like a fake real world, it's like, but the context is really plays an integral part of working through the math. Like, it's hard to work through that math without making connections to the context. So it feels like in those cases, like that's a really good example of modeling with the mathematics, or not, I'm sorry, with real world problems rather.
Yeah.
But that the textbook word problems tend to fall short of that. They don't provide that same piece. So I agree actually with a lot of that, which is this is a place where we kind of have good alignment. And so my part, okay, remember that. So I guess one other part I'd like to strengthen in this claim here is that context is another way for meaning making, right? We use manipulatives, representations. context is also a great way to do that. So when students are working through math, real world problems can provide opportunities for students to connect the abstract to the contextualized situation to build meaning, to solve problems. And they're going sort of from contextualizing and decontextualizing to make sense of relationships, behaviors of operations, actions, all of those things that strengthen it. And so real world problems, when allowing kids to engage in that way, I think are underrated. When it ignores that kind of work and it's just like, here's a harder way to solve a problem. You got to read this text first. That is completely overrated.
Wonderful. Thank you both.
So, Chris, I noticed that even though we chose a controversial topic in the math ed field, there was a lot of agreeing. How do you bring that to math class?
Yeah, it can happen that adults agree on things. I mean, that's sometimes a good thing. And it can happen that students agree on only one answer, even when there may be multiple answers. But that is okay. I just want to stress to students and adults that I want to hear your argument no matter what. So even though you agree, your reason might be completely different than your partner, or when you say something in your own words, it's going to sound different or you have a different way of explaining it. So I want to hear both ways because they are both valid. So that was our circle debates.
Tune in next time for another routine. Point counterpoint.